Hi guys. So this is going to be my review for Tulsa King episode 2. This one's going to be short. I honestly had to rewatch it because I'd watched a couple of episodes ahead and then remembered, oh yeah, I have to do videos about this. Oops. But one of the things I really, really am enjoying about this show is how much of a fish out of water Dwight Manfredi is being in this show. And again, I continue to be surprised by how good a dramatic actor Stallone still is. I don't know if you guys are old enough. Some of you, I'm sure, certainly are, or have seen the old films, the original Rocky and the first Rambo movie, First Blood. But those were pretty much the last dramatic films he really made, the last time he really attempted to be a dramatic actor that I can recall. And yet, after all the action films and things like that he's done, he's still got the chops for dramatic roles. And it's really, really impressive to see him at 75, 76 years old, still able to lay it down really well. And this is after 40 years, give or take, of being nothing but a comedy and action kind of actor. So it really speaks to his talent. And this episode starts off with him, and I'll try to avoid spoilers. This show starts off with him trying to track down his estranged daughter and discovering that he needs a credit card to use anything on the internet. And then discovering that cash is no longer king. Like, all the old rules that he believed were solid have kind of faded away. And there's a couple of good subplots. There's a bit of a romantic subplot going on. I'm not sure at this point how that's going to end up. If it's going to actually be a romantic thing, if that character is going to be one of his allies in the future, it's kind of hard to be sure. But I would say there's certainly some good comedy in this as well. And there is again, a bit of a woke moment. It's a bit more woke than last time the phrase cultural appropriation gets thrown around. And it's kind of questionable as to whether or not it was meant to be a bit of a gag. The young actor who does say it, I'm not 100% convinced it was written to be kind of a poke in the nose to the woke crowd. I think it certainly wasn't played that way. But the subject they chose was dreadlocks on a white guy. Dreadlocks are prehistoric, so they predate any African American culture, any Afro-Caribbean culture for that matter. So really, if you're going to scream cultural appropriation about dreadlocks, you're an asshat. But I digress. So Manfredi continues to dress very much in that New York mode, the old gangster style, which it's very respectable. It looks very manly. It's a very masculine look. And when you compare him to the weed dealer that he's dealing with, Bodie, who is very casual, possibly as high as business casual, but high being the operative word, I think that it's a very interesting kind of, how to put it, the way they portray this character is very manly, possibly may have been intended to be toxic. Unfortunately, is very much not. He's actually a fairly admirable character. He gives the weed dealer a hard time about being high early in the day, talks about his work ethic, things of that nature. Now, granted, the Mafia is a criminal organization, but they're stereotypically known for being hard-working criminals, which is ironic. But there's also a scene. Now, it's obviously no spoiler to tell you this is based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The show is called Tulsa King, after all. But one of the really interesting things about it is that they have incorporated into the story one of the sites, attractions of Tulsa, a place known as the Center of the Universe, which actually has a different name and doesn't operate exactly as they portray it in the show. But the way that it's used in the show lets Stallone really exercise his dramatic chops. There's a really, really heart-wrenching scene at the towards the end. I believe it was actually at the very end, where he kind of admits to a bit of weakness, but he does it in a way that no one really knows about it. And really the important part of that is that he's admitting it to himself. And that moment of catharsis is really, really endearing, to say the least. It really reinforces how likable this character actually is, even though he is essentially scum. He's got 2 murders under his belt. He's been a mafioso for 40-odd years at this point, I think, if not much longer. Well, he does say at one point in the show that he's been driving since he was 13 years old. Given that he's supposedly 75 in the show, and I believe it's set modern day, today's year, that would put him roughly 1958 that he would have been born. If he started driving in 1971, I don't think it was necessarily legal to drive without a license at that time. I don't know that it was legal for 13-year-olds to drive at that time. New York City notwithstanding. One of the things that really kind of grips me about that character is his very stoic manliness, which is something that's very much falling by the wayside a lot of the time in today's pop culture. It's still a feature of men, actual men nowadays. And it's definitely a refreshing thing to see. There's a couple of interesting looking subplots going on, which one deals with his past. Well, they both deal technically with his past catching up to him. One in that he's seeking it out, and one he's completely unaware of. I will try to avoid spoilers there. Or I will avoid spoilers, I should say. But there's a great scene where he goes to a weed farm and meets a native guy named Badface, who he later refers to as Fuckface, which was kind of humorous. But the almost confrontation that they have is very, very, it's a good analysis of how men deal with each other, where that threat of violence is always present. And the feeling out that they have amongst each other, it's very, it's explicitly stated later, in a sense, that Badface has earned Dwight's respect. But the dialogue between the two of them, the native guy says to him at one point, "You ever been on a horse?" Now this is after insulting him by calling him Wasichu, which is translated in a way that I don't necessarily know is 100% accurate, but is made an insult. Not unlike Gaijin or Barbarian would be. Gaijin in Japanese, meaning essentially barbarian, foreign barbarian specifically, or Guailo in Chinese, which is, as I understand, Westerner or Occidental barbarian. But Badface says to him, "You ever been on a horse?" And the response from Dwight is absolutely priceless. "You ever been on life support?" It's one of those moments in the show, like Reacher, that makes you go, "Oh yeah, that's exactly how a good man, a real man, would respond." And it's got that 80s action hero vibe to it, even though there isn't a lot of the over the top. Actually, I don't think there's been any over the top action. There was, no, sorry, that's in the next scene, the next episode. And I don't want to jump ahead just in case somebody's happening to watch this and watch my video and then watch the episode, or watch the episode then watch my video. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. One of the things I really, really love about this show is how, even though he's supposedly a toxic male, he's building relationships with people, or he's trying to repair relationships. And he's going about it in what I would call the classical man way. He's not talking about his feelings. He's not trying to be particularly diplomatic. He's straightforward, and if you don't like it, get the fuck away from him, kind of thing. Which, absolutely respectable, absolutely appreciated. So, this episode, out of 10, I can't think of anything bad that really happened in this episode, except for that one moment of woke kind of bullshit. So, I mean, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. I still recommend this show highly. The little intrusion of the wokeness kind of gives me a bit of a bad vibe for later on. But, as I said, it was my friend the Shademaster who recommended this show to me. He knows my views, and we tend to share much of the same taste in pop culture. So I suspect I'm probably not in for any massive disappointment as I got from, say, Moon Knight or Hitmonkey. Anyway, that's pretty much all I've got for this today. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you continue to do well. And as always, rise and rise again until the lambs become lions. Bye-bye.